Commander HFY pressed his six-fingered hand against the cold viewing window of his ship. Below him, Earth spun slowly in the darkness of space. The blue and green planet looked peaceful from up here, but HFY knew better. This world was dead. It had been dead for 500 years. "Commander," his aide called from behind him. "The scanning team is ready to begin the mineral survey." HFY nodded without turning around. He was Vortani, a tall and thin alien with purple skin and large black eyes. His people were known throughout the galaxy for being careful and thorough. That's why the Galactic Confederation had chosen them to check on Earth every few decades. Someone had to make sure the dead planet stayed dead. The ship's computers hummed quietly as they began their deep scans of Earth's surface. HFY had done this job 12 times before. Every scan showed the same thing: empty cities covered in plants, quiet oceans with no ships, and the faint traces of radiation from humanity's final war. The humans had destroyed themselves long ago, just like the history books said they would. "Scans show no life signs above bacterial level," reported his science officer, a female Vortani named Kessity. "No heat signatures from cities. No electromagnetic signals. The planet remains as dead as our previous visits." HFY sighed. He almost felt sad for the humans sometimes. From what the old records showed, they had been a young and energetic species. They had only just learned to travel between stars when they wiped themselves out. Their wars had been terrible and fast. In just 50 years, they had gone from exploring space to destroying their own world. "Any changes to the radiation levels?" HFY asked. "Decreasing slowly as expected. The contamination should be gone completely in another 200 years. Then the Confederation might consider using this planet for something useful." HFY walked to his command chair and sat down. Earth was a beautiful world, even in death. It had perfect air, good water, and rich soil. When the radiation finally faded, some alien species would probably want to live here. It seemed wrong somehow, but that was how the galaxy worked. Life moved on. Far below the ship, in a place HFY's scanners could never find, Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in a meeting room, carved from solid rock. The room was 2 miles underground, hidden beneath what used to be the Swiss Alps. Around the table sat 20 other people, the leaders of what remained of humanity. "The Vortani ship arrived on schedule," Elena said, looking at the data on her tablet. "Same routine as always. They'll scan for 3 days and then leave." Elena was 55 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. She had been born underground, just like her parents and grandparents before her. She had never seen real sunlight or breathed air that didn't come from a machine. None of the humans alive today had. "Their scans show nothing," reported Marcus Torres, the head of Earth's hidden military. "Our shielding systems are working perfectly. To them, we don't exist." Marcus was a big man with dark skin and careful eyes. His great-great-grandfather had been one of the last humans to see the surface before the Great Hiding began. The stories said he had been a soldier who helped dig the first underground cities while the world burned above. "How are our space observations going?" Elena asked another council member. "Excellent," replied Dr. Sarah Chen, humanity's chief scientist. "We now have hidden sensors around every major alien world. We've mapped their trade routes, learned their languages, and studied their technologies. They think we're extinct, but we know everything about them." Sarah was younger than Elena, with black hair and quick hands that never stopped moving when she talked. She was brilliant with computers and had designed most of humanity's hiding systems. The meeting room was simple but comfortable. The walls were smooth rock, painted white to make the space feel bigger. Soft lights in the ceiling made everything feel warm. It was hard to believe that this small room was the center of a civilization that had been hidden for 5 centuries. "Are we still sure about the plan?" asked Elena. "Once we reveal ourselves, there's no going back." The room went quiet. For 500 years, humanity had lived like ghosts. They had built entire cities underground, powered by fusion reactors that made no sound and left no trace. They had grown food in vast hidden farms, They had raised children who learned to speak in whispers and walk without making noise. But they had also been preparing. Every human child learned alien languages in school. Every engineer studied alien technology and found ways to make it better. Every soldier trained to fight enemies they had never seen but knew everything about. The vote was unanimous, Marcus said firmly. All 27 underground cities agreed. All 400,000 remaining humans agreed. It's time. Elena nodded slowly. 400,000 people. That's all that was left of a species that had once had billions. They had survived wars, radiation, and 5 centuries of hiding. They had done more than just survive, though. They had planned. The aliens think we destroyed ourselves because we were violent and stupid, Sarah said with a small smile. They're about to learn how wrong they are. Above them, Zexhi's ship finished its scans and prepared to leave. The Vortani commander looked at Earth one last time through his window. Somewhere down there were the ruins of human cities, New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai. All empty now, all silent. He had read about humans in school. They had been bipedal mammals with pink or brown skin and tiny eyes. They had lived for less than 100 years each, but they had been very emotional. Too emotional, most scientists agreed. That's why they had fought so much. The history book said humans had been curious and brave, but also angry and careless. They had made beautiful art and music, but they had also made terrible weapons. In the end, the weapons had won. Set course for the jump point, Zexhi ordered. We're done here. As his ship turned away from Earth and engaged its faster-than-light drive, Zexhi never noticed the small objects floating in space around. The planet. They looked like asteroids or space junk, but they weren't. They were human observation posts, hidden in plain sight, watching and recording everything. Deep underground, Elena Vasquez stood up from the meeting table. The decision was made. After 500 years of preparation, humanity was ready to return to the stars. But they wouldn't return as the weak and desperate survivors the aliens expected. They would return as something much more dangerous. Humans who had learned patience. Send the message to all cities, Elena said quietly. Begin phase 1 of the emergence protocol. It's time to remind the galaxy what humans can do when they really try. In hidden chambers around the world, machines that had waited centuries began to wake up. Humanity's long sleep was ending. Soon the aliens would learn that rumors of human extinction had been greatly exaggerated. The galaxy was about to get a very big surprise. Elena Vasquez walked through the corridors of New Geneva, the largest underground city humanity had built. The hallways were wide and bright, with moving walkways that carried people silently between different sections. Gardens filled with earth, plants lined the walls, kept alive by artificial sunlight that felt almost real. It was hard to believe that everything around her existed 2 miles below the surface of the earth. New Geneva housed nearly 50,000 people in an area the size of a small country. It had schools, hospitals, factories, and even parks where children played games their great-grandparents had invented in the early days of hiding. Elena stopped at a viewing wall that showed a live image of the surface far above. Snow covered the mountains that hid their city. It looked cold and empty, exactly the way they wanted it to look. She had been born in these tunnels, raised in these halls, and had never breathed outside air. Sometimes she wondered what real wind felt like. Elena, a voice called behind her. She turned to see Dr. Sarah Chen approaching with a tablet in her hands and excitement in her eyes. The Vortani ship just left, Sarah reported. But more importantly, our deep space sensors picked up something interesting. The hegemonic Republic is moving 3 battle fleets toward the outer rim. That's not normal patrol behavior. Elena frowned. The hegemonic Republic was the military arm of the Galactic Confederation. They were controlled by the Krextai, a species that looked like walking lizards and thought like ancient warriors. The Krextai believed that strength was the only thing that mattered in the universe. Any idea what they're doing out there? Elena asked. Intelligence suggests they're preparing for a large-scale operation. Our hidden observers near their homeworld report increased military production and troop movements. Elena and Sarah walked toward the city center, where the main government building stood. Around them, people went about their daily lives. Children ran to school carrying books about alien cultures. Engineers discussed new designs for machines the surface world had never imagined. Soldiers practiced combat techniques designed to fight enemies who didn't know humans existed. Everyone looked normal and healthy. That was one of humanity's greatest achievements during the hiding years. They had not just survived, they had thrived. Better food, better medicine, and better education had made the underground humans stronger and smarter than their ancestors. "How are the other cities doing with their preparations?" Elena asked. "All 27 cities report ready status," Sarah replied. "New Tokyo has finished their ship construction program. New Moscow has completed their weapons testing. New Cairo has their communication networks online and ready for galaxy-wide broadcast." Elena nodded with satisfaction. Each underground city had specialized in different technologies during the hiding years. New Tokyo built ships that could travel between dimensions, becoming invisible whenever they needed to hide. New Moscow created weapons that could turn an enemy's own technology against them. New Cairo had developed communication systems that could reach every corner of the galaxy instantly. They reached the Central Plaza, a huge open space with a dome ceiling that showed images of the stars. Hundreds of people moved through the plaza, talking in quiet voices. Elena noticed that many were speaking alien languages: Vortani, Krextai, Zephyrian, and 8 others. Every human learned at least 3 alien languages in school. "Elena," called a deep voice. She turned to see Marcus Torres walking toward them. The big man looked serious, which usually meant military business. "What's the situation report, Marcus?" Elena asked. "Our stealth ships have finished mapping every major military installation in Confederation space," Marcus said. "We now know the location of every weapons depot, every shipyard, every command center, and every defense satellite in a 50-light-year radius." Sarah whistled softly. "How many ships do we have in position?" 2,000 stealth vessels, all invisible to their sensors. Each one is equipped with our dimensional phase technology and quantum communication systems. We can strike anywhere in the galaxy within minutes, or we can just watch and gather more information. Elena felt a mix of pride and sadness. Humanity had become incredibly powerful during their centuries of hiding, but they had paid a terrible price. They had become a species of watchers and planners, always thinking 10 steps ahead, always preparing for dangers that might never come. "Any word from our cultural specialists?" Elena asked. "Dr. Kim's team has finished their psychological profiles of all 12 Confederation species," Marcus replied. "We know how they think, how they make decisions, and most importantly, how they'll react when they learn we're still alive." Elena thought about that. For 500 years, humans had studied their alien neighbors like scientists studying insects. They had learned that the Vortani were careful but curious. The Zephyrians were peaceful traders who hated conflict. The Meridians were artists and philosophers who spent more time thinking than doing. But they had also learned darker things. The Krextai enjoyed conquest and saw weakness as an invitation to attack. The hegemonic republic they controlled had a history of destroying species that couldn't defend themselves. If humanity revealed themselves as weak survivors, they would probably be wiped out within a year. That's why the plan was so important. Humanity wouldn't reveal themselves as desperate refugees. They would reveal themselves as something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that had spent centuries becoming invisible masters of space. "Show me the communication array," Elena said. They took an elevator deeper underground, traveling another mile down into the earth. The communication center was a vast room filled with machines that hummed with quiet power. Technicians worked at control panels, monitoring signals from across the galaxy. "This is our quantum broadcast system," explained Dr. Martinez, the chief communications officer. "When we're ready, we can send a message simultaneously to every major world in Confederation space. Every government, every military base, every news organization will receive it at exactly the same time." Elena looked at the machines that would end humanity's long silence. Once they used this system, there would be no more hiding. The galaxy would know that humans had survived, and everything would change. "What about our defensive preparations?" Elena asked Marcus. Every underground city has been reinforced and supplied for a 10-year siege. Our fusion reactors can run for centuries, without maintenance. Our food production systems can support twice our current population. If someone tries to attack Earth, they'll find it much harder than they expect. But Elena knew their real strength wasn't in hiding anymore. It was in knowledge. Humans had spent 5 centuries learning everything about their neighbors. They knew which alien leaders could be trusted and which ones couldn't. They knew which species would welcome humanity's return, and which ones would see it as a threat. Most importantly, they knew something the aliens had forgotten. Humans were very good at surprises. "When do we begin?" Sarah asked. Elena looked around the communication center one more time. In a few days, this quiet room would send a message that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The aliens thought they knew the story of humanity's extinction. They were about to learn they had been reading the wrong book. "Tomorrow," Elena said firmly. "Send word to all cities. We begin the emergence protocol at 800 Galactic Standard Time. After 5 centuries of watching from the shadows, it's time to step into the light." As she spoke, Elena felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. She was about to make a decision that would affect every human alive, and probably every alien too, but she wasn't afraid. Humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they had first gone underground. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were very much alive. More than that, they were about to learn what humans could accomplish when they had 500 years to plan their comeback. Admiral Kethmore of the Zephyrian Defense Fleet was enjoying his morning tea when every communication device on his flagship began screaming at once. The blue-skinned alien nearly dropped his cup as emergency alerts filled his command bridge. "Admiral," his communications officer shouted over the noise. "We're receiving a transmission on all frequencies simultaneously. It's coming from everywhere at once." "Impossible," Kethmore muttered, setting down his tea and moving to the main display screen. "No technology can broadcast to every receiver in the galaxy at the same time." But as he watched, the screen filled with an image that made his heart stop beating. It was a human face. The woman had brown skin and dark hair streaked with gray. Her eyes were calm but intense, and when she spoke, her voice was clear and confident. Behind her, Kethmore could see what looked like a sophisticated command center filled with advanced technology. "Greetings to all species of the Galactic Confederation," the human said in perfect galactic standard. "My name is Elena Vasquez, representing the Human Survival Coalition. I know this message comes as a surprise, since your history books say we died out 5 centuries ago." Kethmore's hands shook as he gripped his command chair. Humans. Living. Humans. Speaking their language and broadcasting from technology that shouldn't exist. "We didn't die," Elena continued with a slight smile. "We went underground and learned patience. For 500 years we have been watching you, studying you, and preparing for this day. We know your languages, your customs, your fears, and your dreams. We know which of you can be trusted and which of you cannot." Across the galaxy, on dozens of worlds and hundreds of ships, aliens stared at their screens in shock. On the Vortani homeworld, Commander Zexhai dropped his morning meal and ran to the nearest communication terminal. On Krextai warships, lizard-like warriors growled in confusion and anger. On peaceful trading stations, Meridian philosophers stroked their tentacles thoughtfully. "To prove we have been watching," Elena said, her image now splitting to show multiple screens. "Here is a small sample of what we know." The screens began displaying classified information that made alien leaders across the galaxy break out in cold sweats. Military base locations that were supposed to be secret, trade negotiations that happened behind closed doors, personal communications between government officials, private meetings that no outsider should have been able to observe. On the Krextai homeworld, war leader Thaxon smashed his fist into his desk hard enough to crack the metal. The largest and most aggressive of his species, Thaxon commanded the hegemonic republic's military forces. His yellow eyes burned with rage as he watched the human female reveal state secrets that could destabilize the entire Confederation. "How is this possible?" he snarled at his intelligence officers. How do dead mammals know our defense codes? We don't know, war leader, one officer replied nervously. Our sensors show no human settlements anywhere. Our history records confirm they destroyed themselves 5 centuries ago. Meanwhile, on Elena's transmission, the human leader was continuing her impossible broadcast. We want you to understand that this is not a threat, she said calmly. We are not revealing ourselves as conquerors or enemies. We are revealing ourselves as neighbors who have been quietly watching over you for longer than most of your civilizations have existed. At that moment, something even more impossible happened. Space stations across the galaxy began reporting the same thing. Ships were appearing out of nowhere. Captain Sarah Chen materialized her vessel, the Lazarus Rising, directly in the middle of Confederation Central Command, the most secure military installation in known space. The sleek human ship seemed to fade into existence like a ghost becoming solid. Alarms screamed throughout the station as aliens scrambled to understand what was happening. The human ship was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was dark and smooth with no visible weapons or engines, and it gave off no heat signature or electromagnetic readings. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the human fleet, came a voice over the station's communication system. I am requesting permission to dock and begin formal diplomatic contact. Admiral Vextar, the Confederation's highest-ranking military officer, stared at the human ship through his viewing window. The purple-skinned Vortani had spent 60 years studying military tactics and space combat, but he had never seen a ship that could appear inside a protected space station. How did you get past our shields? He asked over the communication channel. We didn't get past them, Sarah replied politely. We came through a different dimension. It's a technology we developed during our hiding years, very useful for avoiding detection. Across the galaxy, more human ships were appearing around alien worlds, not threatening or aggressive, just visible where they had been invisible moments before. Each ship broadcast the same message. They wanted to talk, not fight. But the real shock came when Elena's transmission revealed the final piece of information. For the past 500 years, she said, her voice growing more serious, humanity has not just been watching. We have been actively protecting this galaxy from threats you never knew existed. New images appeared on screens across space. Asteroids that had been quietly diverted from collision courses with inhabited planets. Plague ships from hostile species that had been stopped before they could reach their targets. Wars that had been prevented by the mysterious failure of weapons systems at crucial moments. Every time your peoples avoided disaster through lucky coincidence, Elena explained, it wasn't coincidence. It was humans working in secret to preserve peace and protect life. We have been the galaxy's unseen guardians for 5 centuries. On his flagship, Admiral Kethmore sat down heavily in his command chair. His people, the Zephyrians, were peaceful traders who valued art and music above warfare. 30 years ago, their homeworld had barely avoided destruction when a massive asteroid had mysteriously changed course at the last possible moment. The scientists had called it a miracle of gravitational forces. Now he knew the truth. Humans had saved his entire species, and he had never even known they existed, but not everyone was pleased by humanity's revelation. War leader Thakzon of the Krextai was furious. His people had built their power on being the strongest military force in the galaxy. The idea that weak mammals had been secretly controlling events for centuries was an insult he could not tolerate. Gather the battle fleets, he ordered his subordinates. If these humans want to reveal themselves, we'll give them the war they've been avoiding for 500 years. Elena's transmission was ending now, her calm face filling screens across known space. We are ready to take our place in galactic society, she said. We offer our friendship to those who want peace and our protection to those who need help. We have spent 5 centuries learning how to be better than we were when we went into hiding. She paused, and for the first time, her expression became harder. But we also want to make something very clear. We did not survive 500 years underground by being weak or unprepared. We have ships you cannot see, weapons you do not understand, and advantages you cannot imagine. We hope for peace, but we are ready for war. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair aboard the Lazarus Rising, watching through her viewing screens as Confederation officers tried to figure out what to do with her ship. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, learning alien languages and studying their cultures. Now the real test would begin. Some species would welcome humanity back with open arms. Others would see them as a threat that needed to be eliminated. But Sarah wasn't worried. Humans had spent 5 centuries planning for every possible reaction. Whatever the aliens decided to do, humanity was ready. The age of hiding was over. The age of human space power was about to begin. The emergency session of the Galactic Confederation Council had been going on for 18 hours, and the arguing was getting louder. Representatives from 12 different species sat around the great circular chamber on Confederation Prime, their voices mixing into a chaos of fear, anger, and confusion. Ambassador Veltara of the Meridians waved her tentacles in a gesture of calm. Fellow delegates, we must approach this rationally. The humans have shown no hostile intent. They claim to have been protecting us for centuries. Protecting us? Snarled Representative Groktar of the Krextai, his yellow eyes glowing with rage. They have been spying on us, watching our every move, stealing our secrets. This is an act of war. Admiral Kethmore of the Zephyrians stood slowly. The blue-skinned traitor was known for his careful words and peaceful nature. With respect to my Krextai colleague, the humans saved my homeworld from an asteroid impact 30 years ago. If they wanted to harm us, why would they protect us? The debate had been going in circles since humanity's shocking revelation. Some species wanted to welcome the humans back as long-lost neighbors. Others saw them as dangerous spies who had violated galactic sovereignty for 5 centuries. But the real power in the room belonged to war leader Thak Zon, who commanded the hegemonic republic's military forces. The massive Krextai had been unusually quiet during the debates, which worried the more peaceful delegates. The war leader requests permission to address the council, announced his aide. Thak Zon rose to his full height, nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark green scales and battle scars. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had conquered dozens of worlds. Honored delegates, he began in a surprisingly calm tone. We face a simple choice. We can accept that a species we believed extinct has been secretly controlling galactic affairs for 5 centuries, or we can restore the natural order. He activated a holographic display showing star maps of Confederation space. My intelligence officers have spent the last day analyzing the humans' revelations. They know too much. They have been in too many places. They have interfered with too many events. Murmurs of unease rippled through the chamber. Even the delegates who supported peaceful contact with humanity were disturbed by how much the humans knew about their private affairs. These mammals claim to have been protecting us. Thak Zon continued, his voice growing harder. But protection implies superiority. They see us as children who need their guidance. This is unacceptable. Ambassador Veltara tried to interrupt, but Thak Zon's voice overpowered her. I propose that the hegemonic republic's fleets immediately move to contain the human threat. We will secure their homeworld and determine the full extent of their capabilities. If they truly want peace, they will surrender voluntarily. The chamber erupted in shouts and arguments. The peaceful species protested that attacking humanity without provocation would violate everything the Confederation stood for. The more militaristic species agreed that the humans needed to be brought under control, while the politicians argued Thak Zon was already implementing his plan. Hidden from the Council's view, his military forces were mobilizing the largest fleet in Confederation history. 3 days later, Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the command center of New Geneva, watching displays that showed Krextai warships gathering near the edge of Earth's solar system. The big human's face was grim, but not surprised. How many ships? Elena asked, joining him at the tactical display. 437 vessels, including 12 dreadnoughts, Marcus replied. It's about half of the hegemonic republic's total fleet strength. They're taking this seriously. Elena studied the alien formation. The Krextai ships were massive and heavily armed. built for direct confrontation rather than subtlety. Each dreadnought was the size of a small city and carried enough firepower to destroy a planet's surface. "Are our ships in position?" Elena asked. "All stealth vessels are deployed according to the plan," Marcus confirmed. "The aliens can't see them, but our ships have clear firing solutions on every enemy vessel." Dr. Sarah Chen approached with her tablet displaying intelligence reports. "Our observers in Krextai space report that Thaxon is calling this a cleansing operation. He's told his commanders that humanity is a disease that needs to be cured." Elena sighed. They had predicted this reaction from the Krextai. The warrior species saw the galaxy in terms of strength and dominance. The idea that humans had been secretly more powerful than them for centuries was something they could not accept. "What about the other species?" Elena asked. "Mixed reactions," Sarah reported. "The Zephyrians, Meridians, and Vortani are calling for peaceful negotiations. The hegemonic Republic's client species are supporting military action. The others are staying neutral for now." Elena nodded. Humanity had spent centuries studying alien psychology, and they had known this moment would come. Some species would welcome them back, others would see them as a threat, and the rest would wait to see who won before picking a side. "Status of our defensive preparations?" Elena asked Marcus. "All underground cities are sealed and protected. Our fusion reactors are running at full power. Food production is at maximum capacity. We can survive a siege lasting decades." But Elena knew that hiding underground wouldn't be enough this time. The Krextai weren't just looking for proof that humans were alive. They were looking to make an example that would show the galaxy who was really in charge. "Dr. Chen, activate the quantum communication network. It's time for Phase 2 of our revelation." Across the galaxy, every major communication system once again received a simultaneous broadcast. But this time, the message wasn't just from Elena. It was from Admiral Marcus Torres, speaking from what appeared to be a military command center. "This is Admiral Torres of the Human Defense Forces," he said in a voice that carried decades of military authority. "We are aware that Krextai forces are approaching Earth with hostile intent. We want to make our position clear." New images appeared on screens throughout space. Not Earth, but dozens of other star systems. Around every major alien world, objects that had been invisible suddenly became visible. Asteroids revealed themselves to be human observation posts. Space junk turned out to be camouflaged weapons platforms. Empty regions of space suddenly swarmed with human vessels. "For 5 centuries," Marcus continued, "humanity has not just been watching the galaxy. We have been positioned throughout it. Every major trade route, every military installation, every population center in Confederation space is currently within range of human forces." On the Krextai flagship, War Leader Thaxon stared at the tactical displays in growing horror. His ship's sensors were detecting human vessels everywhere, not just around Earth but around his own homeworld, around every Krextai military base, around every planet in the hegemonic Republic. "How many ships?" he demanded of his tactical officer. "We're detecting over 3,000 human vessels, War Leader, and those are just the ones that have revealed themselves. There could be many more still hidden." Marcus Torres continued his broadcast, his image now sharing the screen with tactical displays that showed the true scope of humanity's presence. "We want peace," he said firmly. "We have always wanted peace. That's why we've spent 5 centuries preventing wars instead of starting them. But if you force us to fight, you will learn why humanity survived when you thought we were extinct." The broadcast showed images of human technology in action, ships that could phase in and out of reality, weapons that could turn an enemy's own systems against them, communication networks that could coordinate attacks across vast distances instantaneously. "We know your fleet positions," Marcus said, his voice growing colder. "We know your weapons capabilities. We know your tactical doctrines. We have had 500 years to study how you fight, and we have prepared accordingly." Thaxon realized that his carefully planned surprise attack had become a trap. The humans hadn't just been expecting him, they had been planning for this exact scenario for centuries. But the war leader was not easily discouraged. The Krextai had built their empire through strength and intimidation. He would not let mammals, no matter how clever, destroy what his people had created. All ships advance to attack formation, he ordered. Prepare to engage human forces on my command. As the HFY fleet moved toward Earth, every human in the underground cities knew that the next few hours would determine whether their species returned to the stars as friends or conquerors. 5 centuries of preparation were about to be tested in the fires of space combat. The galaxy held its breath as 2 very different species prepared to discover which was truly superior: HFY strength or human patience. War leader Thaxon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as his fleet approached Earth. 437 of the most powerful warships in the galaxy moved in perfect formation, their weapons charged and ready for battle. "Human vessels detected ahead," reported his tactical officer. 12 ships, light cruiser class, they're not moving to intercept." Thaxon studied the display with satisfaction. Only 12 ships to defend their homeworld? Even if the humans had superior technology, they were badly outnumbered. This would be easier than he had expected. "Open a communication channel to the human vessels," he ordered. The main screen flickered, showing the face of a human woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. Captain Sarah Chen sat in her command chair aboard the Lazarus Rising, looking completely relaxed despite facing an overwhelming enemy force. "War leader Thaxon," she said politely. "I was hoping we could discuss this situation before anyone gets hurt." "The time for discussion is over, mammal," Thaxon snarled. "You will surrender your ships immediately or we will destroy them." Sarah sighed and shook her head. "I was afraid you'd say that. Marcus, you can begin whenever you're ready." Thaxon frowned. Who was Marcus? His question was answered a moment later when a new voice came over the communication channel. "This is Admiral Torres," said a human male with a deep, authoritative voice. "War leader, I want you to look very carefully at your tactical displays." Thaxon turned to his instruments and felt his heart stop. The space around his fleet, which had been empty moments before, was now filled with human ships. Hundreds of them, appearing from nowhere like ghosts becoming solid. "Dimensional phase technology," Torres explained calmly. "We can exist in normal space, or slip into an alternate dimension where you can't see or touch us. Very useful for strategic positioning." The war leader's tactical officer was frantically trying to count the enemy vessels. "Sir, we're detecting over 800 human ships. They've got us completely surrounded." But Thaxon was a warrior who had conquered dozens of worlds. He would not be intimidated by clever tricks. "All ships, open fire, destroy every human vessel." The HFY fleet unleashed its massive firepower, filling space with energy beams and missile volleys. But something impossible happened. The human ships didn't dodge or take defensive action. They simply weren't there when the weapons arrived. "Phase shifting," Torres explained as the alien weapons passed harmlessly through empty space. "We're only solid when we want to be." Then the humans began their counterattack, and Thaxon realized he was facing something beyond his understanding. Human weapons didn't just damage HFY ships, they turned the ship's own systems against them. Weapons that fired backwards into their own vessels. Navigation computers that sent ships spinning out of control. Life support systems that began pumping sleep gas instead of oxygen. "How are they doing this?" Thaxon demanded. His science officer looked up from her instruments with fear in her yellow eyes. "They're using our own quantum communication networks against us, war leader. Somehow they've learned to hack into our systems and reprogram them in real time." Captain Chen appeared on the communication screen again, still looking perfectly calm. 500 years of studying your technology has its advantages, she said. "We know your ships better than you do." Across the battlefield, HFY vessels were falling out of formation as their own systems betrayed them. Some ships found their engines shut down completely. Others discovered their weapons would only fire at their own allies. Still others watched helplessly as their life support systems played human music instead of providing fresh air. But the real shock came when Thaxon tried to call for reinforcements from other HFY fleets. The communication channels were filled with reports of similar attacks happening throughout hegemonic Republic space. Human ships were appearing around every Krextai world, every military base, every strategic installation. "This is impossible," Thaxon growled. "You cannot be everywhere at once." Admiral Torres's voice came over the channel, sounding almost apologetic. "War leader, you're thinking too small. We haven't been hiding on Earth for 5 centuries. We've been hiding throughout the galaxy. Every asteroid belt has human bases. Every nebula has human shipyards. Every empty system has human colonies." The tactical display changed to show the true scope of humanity's presence. Thousands of human vessels were revealing themselves in star systems across the galaxy. What the aliens had thought was empty space turned out to be filled with human civilization. "While you were building empires on the surface," Torres continued, "we were building a civilization in the spaces between. We are everywhere, war leader. We have always been everywhere." Thaxon's flagship shuddered as its own defensive systems turned against it. Emergency lights flashed as the ship's computer began playing human classical music instead of following combat protocols. "Impossible," the war leader whispered. "No species could hide an entire interstellar civilization for 5 centuries." "We didn't hide it," Sarah Chen said, her image appearing next to Torres's on the communication screen. "We built it right, under your noses. Every time you saw a dead asteroid or space debris, you were looking at our camouflaged infrastructure. We've been your invisible neighbors for longer than your species has had space travel." The battle, if it could be called, that was over within an hour. Not a single human ship had been destroyed, while the entire Krextai fleet found itself helpless and surrounded. But Admiral Torres surprised everyone with his next action. "War leader Thaxon," he said formally, "your ships are disabled but intact. Your crews are unharmed. You are free to return to your home world with a message." Thaxon, his pride shattered but his warrior's honor intact, managed to ask, "What message?" "That humanity is not interested in conquest or domination. We want to be neighbors, not rulers. But anyone who threatens innocent people will find us standing in their way." As the Krextai fleet limped away from Earth, their weapons disabled, and their pride broken, the rest of the galaxy watched in amazement. The most powerful military force in known space had been defeated without a single shot being fired in anger. Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of New Geneva, watching, as reports came in from across human space, not just from Earth but from thousands of hidden colonies and bases that were now revealing themselves to galactic civilization. "Status report," she asked Marcus. "All operations successful," he replied with satisfaction. "0 human casualties. Minimal alien casualties. The message has been sent and received." Elena nodded and walked to the great viewing window that looked out over their underground city. But as she watched, the window began to change. Massive mechanical systems that had waited 5 centuries began to move. The ceiling above their city started to open. For the first time in 500 years, sunlight began to shine into New Geneva. Throughout Earth, the same thing was happening. Underground cities were opening to the surface. Humans who had never seen natural sunlight were stepping outside to breathe fresh air. Children who had learned about birds and trees from pictures were seeing them for the first time. Captain Sarah Chen materialized her ship in Earth orbit and looked down at the planet her species called home. Across the continents, massive structures were rising from the ground. Cities that had been hidden beneath the Earth were emerging into daylight. Ships that had been camouflaged as asteroids were revealing their true nature. Earth was coming alive again. But the real change was happening throughout the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, alien governments were receiving formal diplomatic messages from humanity. Not threats or demands, but simple introductions. "Hello, we are your neighbors. We have been here all along. Would you like to be friends?" Ambassador Veltara of the Meridians was the first to respond, sending a message that would be remembered in history books. "Welcome home, humanity. We have missed you without knowing you were there." Elena Vasquez stood on the surface of Earth, for the first time in her life, feeling real wind on her face and real sunlight on her skin. Around her, thousands of other humans were having the same experience. Above them, Human ships filled the sky, no longer hiding in alternate dimensions. The age of hiding was over. The age of human space civilization had begun. But more than that, the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the best way to be strong is to be patient, and sometimes the best way to win a war is to prevent it from starting. Humanity had reclaimed the heavens not through conquest, but through 5 centuries of quiet preparation and invisible protection. They had returned to the stars not as the angry young species that had once destroyed itself, but as the wise guardians they had chosen to become. The galaxy would never be the same, but for the first time in 500 years, it might actually be safe.